Hello, and thank you for your interest in Precise FP. If you have heard of us before this video, welcome. And if you have not, that's okay too. Just a bit of background information. Precise FP was founded in 2007. Primary goal back then was to create a digital data gathering platform that was secure and easy to use. From there, we wanted advisors to be able to customize those forms so they can gather the data that they would like to. And I would say up into the future, really, we've become a bit more of a data hub in that you can absolutely gather that information. But now we've kind of developed through integrations different options for you to kind of push and pull that information, as well as all sorts of features and updates that we've released throughout the years. So without further ado, let's kind of do a bit of a high-level tour of Precise FP. I may highlight some areas where if you are interested, you can further expand your knowledge. But for the most part, we're going to kind of focus on using the system out of the box with some customization capability as well. So let's go ahead, let's get started here. Where we are currently is always going to be your landing page when you log into the system. This is your dashboard, and if you ever want to come back here while in Precise FP, we can click on that little bullseye icon in the upper left-hand corner, and it'll just refresh this dashboard. Now, on the right-hand side, you're going to see an activity timeline, which is super duper helpful. This does log actions taken by users on your subscription, as well as clients or prospects. Everything is clickable as well. So if you would like to be brought to that domain to review that change, you can click on a record and head out. All right. From here, I'm going to open up templates. So on the left-hand side, it's going to be that last icon at the bottom. I'm going to click on templates, and then we're going to pause here to look at the two different types of templates within Precise FP. Now, you may notice we have PDF templates, and we have a PDF library here. These are, I would say, a bit more geared towards custodial paperwork. Our PDF library that we maintain is custodial paperwork. We do keep it mapped and we keep it up to date for you. You are also able to upload a PDF, tell it to pre-fill from the Precise FP profile. These PDFs can integrate with DocuSign for e-signature, or they can use Precise FP's own e-signature. That's included at no additional cost, just in the software. But the cool thing about PDFs is you can map them, although the difference between them and a form template is that when a client receives them, their only functionality with a PDF is going to be to sign and date. So if you need to request anything from the client or prospect other than a signature, we would want to use a form template instead. Okay. So let's go ahead and open up that form library to kind of see what's possible with those. Right away, you'll probably notice we've got some color coding. So whether a template is high security or whether it is low security. High security templates are going to function differently from low security. High security templates are able to pre-fill with information from that client profile because they are authenticating in one of three methods that you choose for them. So we are verifying their identity prior to that form pre-filling, so that we are showing that data to who they say they are. Now, a low security template does not require any form of authentication, but these guys cannot pre-fill. So they're nice for maybe some lead gen options or sending out a survey. Maybe we want to, send out a satisfaction survey, and then we just want to run a report on all responses. Low security templates are great for that. Okay. We will also have, if we expand the categories drop down, we will have pre-built policies and agreements that are set up with that Precise FP e-signature. So really great jumping off point if you do want to kind of include your own agreements within Precise FP. We will also have probably our largest and most popular category is fact finders. If I click more next to the fact finders, we're going to see everything here, including integration optimized fact finders. I will say you don't have to use an integration optimized fact finder to gather data that you then export to that integration. So just a heads up, any fact finder is going to serve the function of pre-filling with information from the Precise FP profile and saving responses back to that Precise FP profile. So suffice it to say, you can use any of these guys. I personally recommend the Quick Fact Finder here, or this plain financial fact finder with the magnifying glass built into it. That one is essentially the Precise FP profile as a data gathering form. So it's a really good place to start. Right? Let's go ahead. Maybe we are interested in the Quick Fact Finder. We can click on it and we can preview it if we would like to see what that experience is going to be like. That can be viewing the experience on a tablet or a mobile device. So we can preview, maybe make some tweaks to our template if we know the client's going to be filling it out on a mobile device, for example. We can also preview authentication. So we'll talk through these three methods here, but if you'd ever like to see what that will be like for the client, we can preview that option as well. And then of course you can always print those templates or even just save them to a plain PDF as well. Okay. I'm going to close out a preview here with this gray X in the upper right-hand corner, and then let's go ahead and install the Quick Fact Finder. I've already installed a version of it, so I'm going to overwrite that version, but we could also select no, and then we would just have more than one Quick Fact Finder that we could send out to clients. So I just installed that form template, and you may have noticed it just moved us from that form library into My Templates. So My Templates is going to be anything you've installed, or if you want to, anything that you've created completely from scratch. Right? Now, within My Templates, we can click on one of these data gathering templates here, and we can customize quite a bit about it. So we have the option to click customize and go into the full template editor. We can preview again. We can edit some overarching information about the template, like its thumbnail. This is internal only, so clients and prospects do not see this. You can change the title, the description, a category or a custom category. You can swap between high and low security, although the system will warn you that if we do swap from high to low, you're going to lose some functionality of that template. And you can also disable templates if you would like to still have them within the system, but maybe they don't show up on the My Templates list until we set it to show those disabled templates. Okay. So within My Templates, let's go ahead, let's click on that Quick Fact Finder. We'll look at our other options here. So if we do want to make a copy of that template, we can do so. If we want to share that template with other users on our subscription, we can opt to share. Our original copy of the template that we share is never going to be editable to whom we share it with. So if we want them to make their own copy and edit that, we would allow for copies. And then we can either share it with absolutely everybody on our subscription, or we can opt to configure it. Maybe we have more than one team on our subscription, and we only want to share it with one of those teams. So you have that sharing option. And then if we go ahead and click customize here, we will be brought into the template editor. Fine. Okay. Now we clicked customize and we've been brought into the template editor. We can see the title of our template here in the upper left-hand corner. It will also confirm that we are in the template editor right next to that title. We will see the title of the page that we are on in the upper left-hand corner as well. And we can also see those pages listed out here on the right-hand side. Your welcome and thank you pages cannot be deleted. Low security templates, you can delete just the welcome page. These guys are basically protecting the contents of the high security template. So the welcome page is what is seen before they authenticate and the form pre-fills with data, for example. All right. So with these guys as well, we won't be able to put any requests for client data on these welcome or thank you pages, just because they can be seen when we, have not secured the engagement. Anything on the page can be customized. If we are looking at our little boxes with dotted lines, these are going to be individual fields or elements on the page. So I can double click on any of these to edit them. I can make a copy of an element. I can create a new empty space if I would like to lay down a new field on this page. And I can also just delete this if I don't want it here. This is an image element, so it is truly just displaying whatever we upload here with the ability to kind of resize that image as you would like to. Now, another option that you'll have is right next to that image element. This is a logo photo element. So it is pulling your company logo from your team in PreciseFP or your user photo from your PreciseFP profile. So you can kind of swap between those as you would like. We can also use macros. So anywhere you are seeing these bracket and percentage symbols, these text boxes are just reading material for the client or prospect. So when this is sent to someone, those macros do update with pertinent information. And you have lots of macros to choose from as well. So if you'd like to address the household both by first names, we could swap to that. You can also create custom macros. We can show you how to do that. We have a help guide on it as well. But really cool as well is there's an option to create a nickname macro that would refer to the client or prospect as their nickname, but it is actually intelligent enough to default to the first name if there is no nickname. So lots possible there. Hi. But on our welcome or thank you page, we are going to be able to only use what we call graphical elements. So if we do try to add a new field here, you'll see it's mainly either something for the client to view, like an image, a PDF, a video, or it can be maybe a call to action that doesn't involve secure information, like a button could be a link to a specific URL. It could also be a link to email, a specific contact. You can choose the link or a little bit more in depth, but you can create a smart link, and that would be a link that you put in each client or prospect's profile, and you send this form to 20 people. They all click on the button and they all get their respective links because it pulls from their profile. So definitely a possibility. Here we can also control whether that link opens in a new tab or the same, what color that link is or that button is going to be. And then we'll see with that quick fact finder, conditional visibility is something that you can set up. You can control sort of print or screen visibility. So maybe something only appears when you print off the engagement, or does not appear when you print the engagement, just only when you're viewing it here on the screen. You can set it to, of course, be always visible. And then advisor preview only is really handy if you ever want to do anything internally in the template. The dynamic financial fact finder, for example, that's in the form library, and that actually has an advisor selection page that only a user of Precise FP sees, and it's designed for you to select the pages that the client or prospect sees when they open that engagement. And that's just done with conditional visibility and the advisor preview option. Yeah, so lots of different options there. One element I would say that can kind of go unnoticed is our calendar app element. This does actually work with quite a few different schedulers. So we here in Precise FP use Calendly. So for example, we could grab a link to a Calendly meeting or our entire kind of Calendly scheduling page. But once we have that link, what we would do is go ahead and paste it. And if you recall those custom macros you can create, you could also create a macro of a link and then just use that each time you want to embed that calendar. I can go ahead and create this. We could also make this conditionally visible, although I would say we wouldn't want to have it on that welcome page then, just because there's no question for them to answer to make the calendar appear or not appear because we're on the very first page. So a lot of offices will put that on the thank you page. So it's something they see when they've completely filled out the form engagement, for example. Okay. So kind of touching on those field types, I want to move us now to another page of the template. So over here on the right, I'm just going to click on client details, and where our flag pages were just kind of reading material for the client. The rest of these pages, so the driver's license icon and household pages, are going to request data from the client, from their spouse. So these guys are secure. This pre-built template is going to have a page type set up for you so that you do not have to create a spouse section on your forms. That is actually this driver's license icon next to the page title is your indicator that this page is set up to ask for data from the client. And then if there is one, go ahead and ask for data from the co-client as well. Okay. We can change that setting at the page level here in page details, where we can also copy or delete a page. If we open up page details, of course, we can change the title, but we can also disable that what we call co-client area or button, which is just that request for the spouse's information on this page. I personally like to keep that enabled because I like to gather the data about the client and the co-client in the same template, but totally up to you there. And we can also include, say, a pop-up message that will appear in the upper right-hand corner of the screen when we are viewing the engagement as a client or a prospect. Okay. So we can edit our pages. We can edit individual fields, either just by clicking on them and clicking our pencil icon, or of course, double clicking works as well. We can copy a field, create that new field, or even just remove that field from the template. When we are editing the field, we can change, for example, the field title itself or a description. One thing that, if already established, we may not want to edit is going to be the connection. You will see these connections in our pre-built templates, and this connection dropdown actually coincides with this chain link icon in the upper right-hand corner of each field. That is your indicator that this field is connected back to the Precise FP profile. So in our connection dropdown, this is the page, the group, and then the exact field in the profile that it's connected to. And because of that, it is able to pre-fill data and save data. So that load and save option here. All right. So if we set this connection to none, or maybe we just lay down a question on our template, you'll notice that connection is not going to be there. So, if we want to know what's your favorite beverage, okay, we can make it mandatory. We could set a default value if we just want to maybe assume everybody likes Sprite. We can set a minimum or maximum amount of characters with this text field, and also which characters we accept or don't accept. Once the value is entered, you can set it to hide if you would like to. I'm setting this to be mandatory, and we can also opt to disable value updates, which would essentially lock the field from client or prospect editing. So very popular, say, with like a fee percentage field where maybe you input the amount. Once there's a value in there, the client or prospect cannot interact with that field. So they can't change that, right? So we have those options as well, but let's go ahead and just create this field so we can illustrate that difference. So we can tell it's a mandatory field because it has the asterisk next to the title. We can see it's a text field if we hover over the little icon kind of at the beginning of the field, and you can do that with all of the fields within Precise FP if you ever need to verify what type it is. But when we laid down our favorite beverage field, we did not have that connection come across. And that's just because there's no favorite beverage field in the Precise FP profile. Now, this is where you can get a bit more in depth if you do have access to the Precise FP, what we call data set. That is going to be here under settings, and it will be a piece under the application header. If you do not see some of these options here that I have, that just means your permissions are different. The applications are available to the administrator of your subscription by default, but it may be a situation where that administrator can give your user permissions to edit different portions of Precise FP, or in a situation like this where we just kind of want to create one Precise FP profile field custom. Maybe it's a situation where they just go in and make it in the data set for you. That's okay. But either way, once we have a field in the data set that we can connect to, then we can come in here and we can make our connection. So right now we have no results. If we go pop into that data set and just create this exact text field, we would actually have that connection to now make, right? If you have any questions about that data set or kind of editing the profile, feel free to chat in with us and let us know. That is a bit more kind of in-depth process. So we definitely like to kind of help you out when we are first customizing that data set. But otherwise, that connection is super duper important. If we do not have that connection, this is not going to pre-fill with any information, and it has, nowhere to save in that Precise FP profile. So if they input their favorite beverage, we can always come back into the form they filled out and see it. Or we could also create a report based off of all of the responses we got from a quick fact finder, and then just pull everybody's favorite beverage in that report instead. But it just won't be able to go to the profile. Okay, that's what that connection does. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and save our changes here. We've kind of talked through different elements on your pages. If we do, of course, want to add another one, now that we are not on the welcome or thank you page, we're going to see quite a few different field types beyond those graphical elements. But of course, those can still be used here on these like personal detail pages as well. We are going to have the option for that text field where we are setting a minimum and maximum amount of characters. You can have, of course, that value hide at the end as well. Your text area field is going to be for longer responses than a plain text field, a bit more of a paragraph response. Currency is going to give everything a dollar sign. It's going to say what type of currency the amount is in. It's going to add commas. It's going to have an option for decimals. And your number field is also going to have decimals. Won't add commas into the fray, but your number field actually does have a maximum amount. So heads up, sometimes I'll see advisors use a number field for like account number. That account number is very likely going to be more than 100,000. So when in doubt with account numbers, routing numbers, fields like that, either use an encrypted field or just use a plain text field. Your drop-down fields are going to be just plain drop-downs. We click the little drop-down icon and see all of our options to choose from. We'll have multiple options, which are check boxes that you can create. When we create these and drop downs as well, we can add a title, and we can also add the options that are going to appear for people to choose from. Now, we would also have the option when we are doing this to say maybe our two options are just yes and then no for this question. We can also edit those values if we would like to. And we can actually see the value. So what our template editor is looking at, we can see that option here, and maybe we want to change that. That's really nice for like conditional visibility. If you're asking a question of, hey, do you want to tell us your favorite beverage? And then only make favorite beverage appear if they answer yes. We want to make sure we're always using the value when we're setting up that visibility. So what I mean there is if I want to, set this up to appear when a certain selection is made, I'm going to establish conditional visibility and make a selection. So let's say maybe when the middle initial equals M, for example, we could do that. And then we could save our changes. Now, if we had just created that yes, no question, we would just want to make sure that we are using the value of that yes, no. So for example, if we grab this trigger response, this is a yes, no question. So we would not use the value of M anymore, but shoot, what is the value of that yes or no? We can click show allowed values, and it is going to list them for you. So you can see here, I've actually customized this yes, and this yes has a value of 1. So I can copy it if I want to, and then just paste it right into my conditional visibility and hit save changes. And now this little eye icon lets me know that this is conditionally visible. If I wanted to, I could hop into preview, make that selection, and watch this text field appear only when I make that selection. All right, so editing those fields here, you can, of course, also request addresses, have things be held in a percentage amount. You can have those phones and date fields be, formatted a certain way. You can use encrypted fields to even further secure information. So like the social security number in the Precise FP profile is encrypted by default. You have calculations running based on inputs that the client or prospect are telling you, maybe, something to do with income, taxes, net worth, all sorts of calculations you can run. You can also request the client upload documents or images to you. Document upload does also work for images though, so you can kind of use that one for both. And then, of course, with a high security form template, we can also add a request for e-signature. We can make that mandatory. We can say whether they're allowed to just type or draw. And then by default, the certification of completion, there we go, is going to be enabled. But if for whatever reason that's not something you need, maybe it's just internal only, you can also disable that. All right, so just kind of talking through those field options here. Those are your options for just editing individual elements. We'll also have, as you can see, these groups on each page. So we've got a group for contact details, we've got a group for personal details, and we can edit these as well. We can make a copy of the group, or we can just edit how it is currently. So some options here are going to be the title, the description, whether or not the title shows on the form. We can enable an option so that if we do have very, very large fields in this group, things will kind of fit around them a little bit better, just look a little nicer. And for each group, we can enable or disable an add more button. Now, that add more button is not enabled on this personal details page because remember that co-client area is going to appear. So it's going to ask the co-client for their information. We don't need to have multiple records of this one group. Rather, where add more might be helpful is if we move on to a family members page where we have our little house icon. So nothing is duplicating. We're just truly entering into the page that we see. The children group is actually add more enabled. The idea is the household is inputting their children. So enter in the first one, click add more, and then enter in really as many children as they have. Okay. So that is going to be a setting at the group level. Now, if you do have an add more enabled group, when we list, 6 kids, it's actually going to list them out by name, and then you can click on that name to see the full information about that child. So we do want to have some way to label each of those records. So for children, it lists them all by first name. Some other add more enabled groups may ask you for a field for row title, and that's just what each piece will be referred to when they're all kind of displayed in that add more group. All right. So let's go ahead, let's look at our retirement plans page. This is what it's going to look like in the template editor, but if we do hop into preview mode, it will be a lot more of an experience like the client or prospect is going to receive. We can click to proceed and then interact with the form. We can see our little pop-up message here, and we can also see that conditional visibility at play. So for example, the children page where we saw that whole group that was asking for children, it was add more enabled. That only appears for the client or prospect if they select the box that says, do you have children? And they say yes. Okay. That's why I like the quick fact finder, especially for kind of starting out new relationships, is the power's in their hands. They don't have to scroll through a completely empty, 12-page form. They can click through 6 or 7 pages and say, you know what, I do have life insurance, auto insurance, enter in information, upload any kind of pertinent documentation, and that documentation is requested for each record here. And then they can continue on with assets, liabilities, and then the finish page. So when the client sees the finish page, that means they have completed the engagement. If they do try to re-access it, they'll likely get a screen that says it's completed with an option to request that you reopen it. All right, so let's go ahead and close out a preview here. And then just kind of running through some options in that template editor. We can edit overarching details, again, about that template. We're going to see some more options here within the template editor, though, in that we can establish a default authentication method. We can, once again, still disable that template if we'd like to. We can also enable a setting. It is disabled by default, but multiple open engagements here. If we enable that setting, maybe we sent John and Jane Smith this quick fact finder last week. And then today we're going to send them this quick fact finder again. Same exact form, right? It's going to pre-fill with what they've entered. So those forms should look exactly the same. With multiple open engagements enabled, both of those engagements stay open. They can access either of them. They're probably gonna have two links that they can kind of use interchangeably. Now, multiple open engagements is disabled because if you send John and Jane Smith a quick fact finder and you sent them one last week, that will actually just close the one from last week so that they only have one active engagement for that same template. So totally up to you. I prefer to just keep that option disabled. Another one that's really nice for any mandatory elements is this prevent navigation when validation fails. Also disabled by default, but if you do enable it, mandatory fields will actually keep the client or prospect on the same page as the mandatory field. Whereas if it's disabled, they can actually click through all the way to the end. And when they click finish, it will bring them back to their very first mandatory field they need to fill in. All right, so you have those options. We can edit the theme. So colors, fonts, borders, backgrounds, all those lovely things. We can also control the emails that either do or do not go out. If you send your engagements directly from Precise FP, you've got the new engagement email that will go out when the engagement is created, the periodic reminders, and then the thank you email as well. Heads up with those periodic reminders. You do have the functionality to create an engagement, but not email it to the client right away. If we use that option and we have periodic reminders enabled, they do not know when you email the client that engagement, they just know it was created. So periodic reminders actually start going out when the engagement is created rather than when it is sent, okay? This is at the template level, but you also have control over that or those emails per engagement as well. Okay. Another option up here in the upper right is we can translate sections of our template. So if we don't like our add co-client option, we could change that to maybe be add spouse or partner at the bottom of our co-client enabled pages. You can translate pretty much everything to do with the entire engagement experience. So that can be another language, or, like we kind of did, it could just be, hey, I have a preference for how a button is worded that my clients and prospects are going to click on. So we can see that again in preview when we come to the bottom of this page. Now, instead of saying add co-client, when this page duplicates, it will be a button that says add spouse or partner. And then that would be that spouse or partner's information. If we're sending this to an account where we already knew their co-client and it's on their account profile, then this page would already be duplicated and we would see the co-client's name at the top of their section, the client's name at the top of their respective section. Okay. All right, so lots you can translate there. You can also associate your form templates to pre-fill a PDF just directly, so ignoring the Precise FP profile. That's really nice if you do want to have that PDF pre-fill. It can actually sit in a holding stage for you to review before you send it out for e-signature, or it can go for e-signature automatically. So lots of options there. I will say that is a little bit more in depth, so it really helps to be comfortable with form and template editing before we start associating PDFs with those forms. Okay. And then if we do hop back into preview, we've kind of touched on, we'll have the desktop, tablet, mobile preview. We can open it in a new window or preview authentication methods. We can also print or send a PDF, our templates there. But a really cool thing in preview when we're in the template editor is we can still open up that themes domain, switch back to desktop here. But this time the themes domain is a live editor. So when I make a change here, it is going to show me that change across the entire template. Maybe I want to try out one of our pre-built themes and just kind of see what that is going to look like, what that's going to affect. We can swap between those two. I have to hit load here for them to change. So we can swap between those pre-built templates and or the import themes and kind of see what those look like. And then we can also import a theme from another template. So once you have one template with all the right colors, fonts, borders, settings, we can then go search for that template by name. We can click on it when we find it, and I bet this won't change at all, but here we go. Yeah, we just imported that theme. So I think something did change there, but for the most part, it didn't. But we know now that that template is uniform with the other template's theme that we just imported. Right? So when in doubt, I like to hop into preview to do my theme editing. But otherwise, that'll kind of be in terms of what you are able to do with these form templates in the editor. From here, what we would want to do is very likely send this form to a client or prospect. Although before we look at that capability, unique to form templates is going to be the option to web publish them. When we are in the web publish domain, you might see a video here, and that's okay. Just means you haven't web published a template yet. But any of those templates in my templates, we can choose to web publish. We pick the template. You can do this with both high and low security templates, although low security, more of a lead gen option. It does actually create a new prospect every time somebody interacts with that because they are not authenticating, right? So we're just getting a new record each time. You might run into some duplicates that you'll have to rectify. A high security template will still pre-fill, and it can also allow for those prospects to sign up, but with the added functionality of an existing client being able to use that same link, authenticate, and the form pre-fills with all of their data. So it's a really cool kind of self-service option as well, because if they know your fact finders on your website, maybe they moved a week ago, they can just access that form, update their address. It updates to their profile within Precise FP automatically. And then you're even emailed to say, you know, hey, Jane Smith finished this engagement. You can go in there and see, or even just hop right into their profile and see, oh, the only thing that changed was an address. This is new information. All right. So when you are web publishing, you choose an option. Generic URL is the most straightforward. It truly just gives you a URL you can share with anyone, and they're all going to be in their own instance of that form when they click on it. And you can also do HTML or a button or bar across your website. HTML is great for social media as well. And then iframe is truly just an embed right there on your website. I would say these last four options here may involve a little bit of technological or like developmental know-how. That's why you can see here my favorite option is that generic URL. But once we web publish that high security template for existing clients who want to access that form, we're going to choose one of three authentication methods. I'm going to say, you know, hey, just email them a PIN each time. And then if we want this to also allow that lead gen option, we're just going to allow for visitors to sign up. We can choose whether the initial prompt is a kind of sign in for those existing clients to access the engagement, or if we want that sign up page to appear first, but both options will be there. We're just going to create signups right here in my team, my primary team. But if you have more than one team on your subscription, you can also control where those newly created prospects are sent once created. Right? But then once we save this, we now have under web published our generic URL. We could copy this at any time and email it out, put it in a newsletter. Some people turn them into QR codes, which is kind of cool, but we can really use that as much as we need to. Really cool thing about web published templates is if you do change the actual quick fact finder template under my templates, those changes flow through to your web published template. So you do not have to, you know, come remove this and then republish it. The next time somebody accesses this web published template, they're just going to see the most up-to-date version of that template. Okay. Now, if we do engage a client or prospect directly from Precise FP, just a heads up there, if we make a change on the template in My Templates, an engagement just sent to a specific client or prospect actually won't update that template. So you'd have to send them a new engagement if you've, added a new field for them to see that new field. But that is kind of a great segue to talking about your people within Precise FP. So this little head and shoulders right underneath the Precise FP logo is going to be your accounts. I am going to click on all accounts, and we are going to be brought into that accounts domain. Hi. Accounts within Precise FP are kind of more so what the financial world might refer to as a household. So one account will actually house the client, the co-client information, their children, their estate planning, retirement plans, 401ks, all that lovely stuff, right? That's all able to house within Precise FP. It's one household, one account. So if we are looking at accounts right now, I've got 5, and then I do also need to check in archived. You can archive an account if you'd like to not delete them, but you still want to kind of set them aside for now. We can always unarchive somebody, but just a heads up there that the archived account will count towards your total accounts. It just won't show it in all accounts, right? We can also view prospects or clients only. And we can, of course, set favorites if we would like to just view our favorites here. We can also pin to top if we would like a record to just always appear at the top of that list for us. If we check the box next to an account, you'll see we can engage this way. We can create up to 50 engagements in one fell swoop. Although I will say, if we go this route, it is just going to engage the primary client on each account, with the idea being that, maybe they ask the co-client some questions and input their data, or they're sitting down with the co-client and kind of filling things out together. Okay. With checking boxes, we would also have the option to convert this record from client to prospect. We can move this record to a different team. Maybe our additional team does more investment planning. Maybe I'm more of a, tax prep person. If this client wants to do more investment planning, I can just move them right over to test team. And I won't see that client anymore. If we hopped over to the test team, it's now going to be listed over there. All right. You have that option to favorite and archive, and then you can also delete an account record, although this will have you enter your Precise FP password because it is a permanent deletion. We can't even get it back for you. It's gone from the system. So I highly recommend ensuring that you've backed up any data that you want, any completed engagements that you want, prior to deleting an account from Precise FP. Okay. But otherwise, so you have your options there. If we do want to create a new account, we have several options. We've already kind of touched on that web publishing option, so the self-service to kind of sign up as a prospect yourself. But we can also add a new account here in the upper right-hand corner. We can do so manually, choose whether they're a prospect or a client, and type in their name and at least email just to create that record. Maybe then we engage them with a fact finder to gather further information. You will have the ability to enable and disable integrations that you have. So if you have integrations that allow for import, we can also pull in a record from an integration partner. And if you know that the record exists in the integration partner, our best practice before you send them a form in Precise FP is go ahead and import that record from wherever whatever that integration partner is, because then, not only do you have that data to pre-fill the form you're sending them, but you've also actually then created a link between those two profiles. Now, with these import-export integrations where we are exchanging data, they will not exchange data automatically. And that is by default. So you do your importing or exporting manually. It all takes about 10 seconds to do an import or an export. So if I wanted to bring in my profile, I won't because I don't want to create a duplicate here. But if I were to click import, take about 10 seconds to think, and then I'd have a new record for myself here from Wealthbox. Okay. Now I know my profile wise, I've imported this record from Wealthbox before, maybe exported as well. Once you do one successful import or export, that link is created. So again, not going anywhere manually, but because I've run that import or export before, the Darby and Precise FP and the Darby and Wealthbox now know to talk to each other. I could unlink that if I wanted to. You can always export to create a new record in the integration system as well. But in this instance, it just makes import export that much faster. We just click the button and we let it think. Okay. And with this export too, if something were to error out, say for example, of my 5 little pretend children there, maybe only 4 of 5 were sent over successfully, we'd actually have a little error message saying, hey, make sure you've got a first and last name for all of the children in your profile. We need that to be able to send the children information to Wealthbox. And that's why we have the option to just open up that profile right here. It will open up their Precise FP profile. You can make an edit and then run that export once more. Okay. And now account creation, your kind of final option here is going to be a bulk import. Now I will say this is separate from any integrations. So you can absolutely use data from an integration, but we can't do a bulk import like from Redtail. You would have to create a report and then export that to spreadsheet. And from there, we can import up to 300 account records, actually with 40 columns on that spreadsheet of map data, which is pretty cool. So that one sounds intimidating, but it's actually a lot easier than it is if you ever want to kind of try that out. I always say, even just try it with like one account first, but also feel free to ask us for help. We're in that live chat in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Right? So you have your bulk import option as well. Okay. Also in accounts, we can view information about different households. So instead of checking a box, I'm just clicking right on the line here. And I am able to view the name, email, and mobile number of the client and the co-client. If I want to maybe do some maintenance with the client and co-client, I can swap between the two of them. I can split them, and I can also just delete that co-client as well. All right. We'll have a timeline of recent activity just for this account. We can see a data quality score and pipeline stage here as well. If you have questions about what these are, definitely let us know in that support chat. We can also view whether a password has been established. So if we're using that password authentication, once somebody has established their password, it's stored in their profile. Neither you or I can see it, but if needed, you can reset it. And that reset option would be right here in that same place where it now says password not created. So if they forgot it, we could click that button. The next time they access an engagement, it'll just walk them through the process of establishing a new password. If we don't have a co-client on our account, we would have the option to add one and just type in their information. And we could also merge it with another individual account if we wanted to bring them together as client and co-client. Okay. We'll look at that engage dropdown, but some options here in the upper right are going to be viewing all of the engagements, either form or PDF that you've ever sent to this account or this profile. We are going to be able to view profile data. We'll hop in here in a sec. We can also establish secondary contacts if maybe there's an adult child that's a POA, or an attorney that wants to be, included on all engagements, or we need their signature as a secondary contact. That would all be a good reason to add somebody as a secondary contact to an account here. Okay. You can, of course, import to an existing record. So maybe we created this record by importing from Wealthbox, but we also have data in Redtail. We can just run an import from Redtail as well. These imports are going to avoid duplicates, and our import export will also not send null values. So my example is always, hey, if you have a middle initial in Redtail, you have no middle initial in Precise FP. If we run an export from Precise FP to Redtail, you're still going to have that middle initial in Redtail. Yeah. So we won't get rid of anything for you. So you have that import option. You have the export option as well, and that will include your integrations, but also to a spreadsheet or PDF. You can also create reports of maybe all clients' profile data, or even of a form that you sent out. You just want to see everybody's responses. That's something you can build in that reports domain. Right? All right, but let's go ahead. Let's open up that account profile. So I'm just going to click on an existing record, and then I'm going to click on that driver's license icon here. And this is going to show us all of the information we're storing for this household. You'll notice we have some green icons and then green numbers here on the right as well. The profile will actually highlight changes that have come through from somebody filling out a form or editing the profile. You can, click edit and just type right into it. Or even if you run an import and, something changes in this profile from importing from Wealthbox, we will see that change icon. We can actually hover over the change icon to see what the previous value was as well. If anything ever happens where maybe the profile data is not correct, we're all human. I've seen spouses accidentally fill in like their spouse's section on the form. Maybe the data gets a little wonky in the profile here. That's okay. The system will keep a history of your profiles. So if our current history is a little not great, we can always click on a previous version. It will actually show you what all the data was back then, and you'll have the option to roll back the profile to that version. Right? If you do make any edits in the profile, just make sure you click return to save those responses as well. Okay. From here, we'll also have the option to engage, import, or export. So really kind of the primary function for the profile was you can make sure everything is still in good order before you export to your different integration partners. But remember, you can also export just directly from that account details tab. We will also have a section to house the documents that your clients or prospects upload. This would be if that document upload field has a connection back to the profile, then the documents will show up here when somebody uploads something to one of your form templates. Okay. From here, we can download, we can delete, kind of do what we need to do. And then once we're done, we can just return right back to that profile. Okay. Now, pausing here to say, if you do have the access, this profile is essentially that data set. So you will have some capability. If you can edit that data set, you would be able to create custom fields in that profile. If you do have questions about that, or if you are not seeing that data set option, remember that could be permissions, but feel free to, reach out to us here in support and just kind of ask us if that's something you can access. We're happy to take a look. Right? But Biggest thing to keep in mind with the profile is this is the data that pre-fills your forms. And then when we integrate, so when we export to an integration partner, this is the data that gets exchanged. So your forms are vehicles for that data, okay? All right. So when we are ready to send one of our accounts an engagement, I like to start here in all accounts, click on the household that we want to engage, and then I like to use this engage with a form dropdown. Now, the reason I like to use this option here is once we choose the template that we're going to send to the household, it is going to ask us who the primary contact of the engagement is. That's just going to be, the first person listed on a co-client enabled page. If we don't select a secondary contact, that primary contact will also be the person who gets the email to the engagement. Now, if we select a secondary contact, they're now getting an email at the same exact time as the client. And if you recall my little custom secondary contact, we can also add them on. And if we had e-signature fields, we would actually be able to tell the e-signature fields, this is where a co-client would sign versus maybe this POA, for example. All right. We can also choose the authentication method. So remember, you can set that default at the template level, but you have your options here for those different authentication methods, the email a PIN each time, text a PIN each time, or password authentication, a little bit more involved than the other two. This can kind of go one of two ways. So if you send an engagement with password authentication to somebody who does not have a mobile phone number in PreciseFP, you'll get a little message telling you right below here that the PIN that they need to establish their password will actually be emailed to you to provide it to them. They enter that PIN, they establish their password, they're in the engagement, and they just keep using that password for the future. Now, if they have a mobile number, they get that PIN all by themselves, they establish their password, and they go right into that engagement. So heads up with password authentication really, really helps to have that mobile number. And you also may not see SMS authentication in this dropdown. That just means you don't have a cell phone number for both the client and the co-client. Okay. So we can choose our authentication method, and then we can choose whether we want to create and send the engagement immediately, which would send from that no reply at precisefp.com. We now have the ability to just change these emails for this one engagement. So if they're a very forgetful client, I might just enable periodic reminders for this one. We would also have the capability to just pre-fill the engagement, but not email anybody yet. All right. I am going to choose the send immediately here just so we get that email. But what that will do from here is that has just pre-filled the template that we selected with data from that profile. And then I will have an email in my inbox, perfect timing. And it will be an invitation from me. Now I'm actually getting all three invitations because all of these pretend people technically use my email address. So I'm just going to grab that primary contacts email here. And then my Outlook is in dark mode. So I apologize ahead of time. I know it's a little jarring. But this is kind of what the default email looks like if it comes from that PreciseFP, that no reply. But remember, Darby test account is my company name. We can control, the email subject here, the body, the verbiage, even the color of the button to click on the fact finder. And then that's your company logo as well. So me as a client, I would click to access that quick fact finder. I am going to see our beautiful page with that Calendly embed. I could schedule a time if I wanted to, be greeted by name. And then when I click start, it's just going to ask me to verify by sending that PIN to my email. So that's what I would do. Now, if we choose that review and edit option, what happens then is you're actually taken from accounts into the engagements domain. So this bullseye icon here, I'm just going to click on all engagements, and your most recently created engagement will always just be right at the top for you here. So I can see I actually did send an email a minute ago to the participants. I can see that on that little activity timeline. If I click on this engagement, I can now take some actions with it as well. So if I'd like to hop back in there, maybe they filled a few things out, maybe they closed the tab and they'll come back to it later, but I just want to see what they filled out. I can click view edit engagement. If I want to check another box for them while I'm in there, I can do that. Remember, you can also go into the profile and see the changes coming through in there. But we can also manually close the engagement. So the client clicking all the way through and clicking finish at the end will technically complete the engagement. But sometimes we do close out of our browser tab or just shut down the computer without thinking. That's a way you can close that engagement there. That also stops all like emails from going out too. Okay. And then I actually engaged 3 people with my template. So if I did want to, maybe we did not email anybody, rather we wanted to copy these links and put them in our own email, or even put it in a messaging app and text it to the client, because remember, these are tablet and mobile friendly. You can grab the links and do so. Now, your client link is always going to be on the top, and your co-client link is always going to end in /cc. Your customary or your custom secondary contact is always going to end in a little bit more gibberish. But you can also highlight over these link icons to see exactly who that link is for. Okay. Now, if you ever do forget, maybe we only have one link. Oops, we forgot to include the co-client, and now we want to, send them an invitation to fill out the form as well. Co-client's URL is always the clients with /CC at the end. So if you copy this link and then maybe email it to the client separately, just add /CC at the end, and it becomes a link specifically for that co-client. Hi. Yeah, it's really cool. And then once again, we can, of course, still customize those emails if we want to. We can add an internal note. So maybe another user, knows more information about the family. We want them to kind of fill in a bit more data before we send it out. We could just make a note here, and that would only be something visible to users of Precise FP. Okay. And then if we do want to just trigger, say, another new engagement email, maybe we didn't send it out or they haven't kind of interacted with it, we could send that just directly from here as well. All right. So you have your engagement options there. We've kind of talked through how you can make those templates really kind of the best for you there. I do want to touch on just a couple more pieces of Precise FP. So one domain that we did sort of briefly touch on was the reports domain. These are reports that you can run either against all of your profile data, or you can run it against just a certain engagement, if you did like a satisfaction survey. So reports are a really cool way to gather a bunch of information. They can always be exported to Excel or CSV. So if you ever need profile data or even like all of the entries on an engagement, as long as you haven't deleted that profile or that engagement, you can create a report to pull in that information. Okay. All right. And then last thing I want to show you here, just kind of showing the larger domains of Precise FP. I've just clicked on settings, and then I've clicked on integrations here right below notifications. Your integrations domain is all of the integrations within Precise FP that you can enable and use. Now, remember that calendar app embed does include sort of our integrations with those scheduling applications. We also have 3 software that actually built an integration with us. So that integration is enabled and used on the partner side. If you use Income Lab, Pulse 360 or FP Alpha, we have help guides, but you will do the integration actually over on that side of the software. Okay. Now, other than basically the DocuSign integration, which is for use with those PDF templates, the biggest thing I want to kind of bring to your attention is going to be the 2 different types of integrations. They do function a little differently. So any integration where the tile says data can import and or export. So we do have some integrations that export only. A lot of them will import and export though. That just means that we can import the record and we can also export the record. Now, each integration will have its own mappings. So I might be able to send data to Redtail that, you know, I can only send a couple fields of that data to like Write Capital, for example. So we have help guides that will break down the default mappings between Precise FP and that integration partner. So let us know if you're interested in that. But these data-based integrations, so any of them that import or export, are those manual integrations. So as we saw, we import when we're ready, and then we can, if we want to, review all of the information we've gathered before we export to update, you know, Redtail and then update Salesforce and send a Holista plan. You have that capability to just make sure it's all good. Okay. Now, kind of the opposite of that is going to be any documents only integration. These guys, once enabled, do start working automatically. Now, they also have a manual export. If you recall the documents section of that profile, if we run a manual export to Dropbox, it's just going to send over all of those documents that we had in that documents area of the profile. The automatic part of the integration, in my opinion, is kind of the cooler part, because once enabled, and I would flip this other option to yes, because that's kind of a big one. But once enabled, this integration also saves backup copies of your engagements. So as soon as the client puts it in completed status, or if you close it for them, it saves a copy of that completed engagement and any client uploaded documents as well. That does feed into a Precise FP root folder, and it does household documentation as well. So nice and organized within that Precise FP root folder. Now, I will say, if you ever do want to locate a document, maybe it's not in the profile, they will always stay associated with the engagement that they were uploaded to. So if we want to find something that somebody uploaded, we can locate their engagement, and we can also see all of these documents right here for us. We can download them all in one fell swoop if we want to. Fine. All right. Well, let's go ahead. Let's bring us back to dashboard here. The last thing I want to highlight for you, I know I've kind of pointed it out already, but in the bottom right-hand corner of the Precise FP window, that is our chat window. If you click on messages, this is myself and 2 other human being colleagues from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. If you chat in after hours, that's a-okay. We'll get back to you first thing in the morning. And if you are offline when we reply to you, it also emails you that reply. Now, with messages, I like to say there's no such thing as a silly question. Even if you're just kind of curious, you know, hey, I have this idea. Can I accomplish it in Precise FP? Feel free to let us know. You'll also have access to our help guides right next to that messaging application. You can search by keywords, but remember, Also, if you want to just chat in and say, hey, can you just send me everything you have on editing form templates? We're happy to gather videos and help guide links for you as well. And we'll also have that YouTube channel full of pre-recorded videos. So yeah, you just feel free to let us know what you need here in chat. If you want to kind of dig further into the software, we'll have all sorts of guides and videos to help you see what else is possible. But for now, I hope this is a way to kind of empower you to get started with Precise FP and make some tweaks so that those forms are a bit more personalized for your clients and prospects. I am Darby Miner. I am a member of our support team. If you have any other questions, you let us know, but otherwise, thanks for watching.